Speaking of comedy, hopefully we could take a second to just say RIP to a legend and someone who said the Cooligans. Norm Macdonald passed away today after a very private, very secret battle with cancer that no one knew about. I didn't know about it. Apparently, he had been dealing with it for years. But I posted a clip on Cooligans and on my personal social media of the first time I did a live comedy set. The first time I did a comedy set was on Gotham Comedy Live, which used to air on the Access channel, which, you know, I don't even know if that's still around. But yeah, I was super nervous. It's probably going back about, this is actually the first year of Cooligans. So it's probably going back 5.5 years. I was super nervous. Not nervous that I was going to bomb or whatever, just didn't know what to expect. They kept saying, like, look, we might cut your set down to 6. We might have you go the full 8. Just be prepared to do 6, but have an even better joke ready to add in case you go 8. You know what I mean? Which is like not the way you want to go into a set. You want to end on your big joke. So, you know, typically you'll have like, well, if I get the 8th, then I'll just throw some other stuff in there. Christian was there. Actually, you can hear him laughing in the background, which is one of my favorite memories, because as a comic, you want to know the other comics are laughing. That's how you know it's good. And I could pick Christian's laugh out. So the whole time I'm like, all right, that joke didn't hit. He didn't laugh. All right, that joke hit. He laughed. But I guess you could play it. This is the intro that he gave. I'll give a little bit of a background story, which I don't think I've ever told on the show. Whenever you go to do stand-up, the host of the show will typically come up to you before you go up and say, hey, what do you want me to say? Like, what's your credit? Like, oh, I got this thing on HBO, or I got this thing that I'm about to do, or I'm known for X. Like, oh, I'm the whatever cooking guy on YouTube, whatever it is. Obviously he didn't do it himself, his handler. And this is after like a 2.5 hour one-to-one conversation with Norm. He only liked me. He didn't like anyone else from the cast that night. He just came straight up to me. We started talking. We talked about sports for 2.5 hours. And then he goes to his green room, and the producer comes down. He goes, all right, we need your credit for Norm. And I said, oh, you could tell him to say he's one of the Cooligans, which Christian and I had just decided would be like the thing we get people to say. He's one of the Cooligans. And he goes, great, writes it down. And he goes, great. And everyone else comes back about 5 minutes later. He's like, Alexis, yeah, Norm doesn't know what that is. And I said, oh, it's like a podcast and a YouTube channel. And like we do videos and we do live events. It's just like soccer and comedy together. And he goes, all right. What is it again? I go, it's one of the Cooligans. It's like one of the Cooligans leaves, comes back. He goes, Norm thinks you're messing with him. He's not going to say it. I go, what? He goes, he thinks you're pulling a prank on him. He thinks it's a swear word or something. He's not going to say it. I go, dude, it's not a swear word. I pulled up our Instagram. I pulled up everything. I go, dude, it's real. The Cooligans. I'm one of the Cooligans. And he goes, all right. He writes it down on the big cork board, which I still have to this day. And he leaves. He comes back just before we're supposed to go upstairs to start filming. And he's like, look, he rolled his eyes. He doesn't think it's real. He thinks you made a website and Instagram to mess with him. And he's going to say something that's bad. So he's not going to say it. So just be prepared, because he's probably not going to say it. So I think second or third that night. I'm third. And again, they're telling us like, you might do 6, get ready to go at 6. Like, we're going to light you. They give you a minute and a half, 30 seconds, get off, because it's live, right? Get off stage. So just before I go up, I don't know if you could play. Will they be able to hear it?
Yes. Let's do that.
So this is what, yeah, I don't know. You might have to restart that, but this is what he said. Also, it looks like it's muted on the bottom there.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I do know you, okay.
Let me replay it. There you go.
This next comedian you probably know as one of the Cooligans. They fucking do know you, okay. I lost $20. He's a funny motherfucker. Here is Alexis Guerreros. Give him a hand, everybody.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. I cut it there.
Yeah.
People always ask me, what did he say in my ear? And I've never really said it because it was like a private thing. Whatchamacallit? He saw us do our act beforehand. So in what he said in my ear, he said he goes, you're gonna kill it, or something like that. He was like basically intimating like you're gonna do great. Like you're the best one here, right? And then he goes, and I'm not giving you any fucking money. And then he walked off stage, which is why I'm laughing, because he said, I just lost $20. We had no bet. He just did that as a joke, but he wanted to make sure he knew he ain't giving me no $20. He knew enough to say that. And to end the story, Robert from LA said, "Did you get the whole 8 minutes?" They stretched me for the first time in like probably a year. In the past year that they've done the show, they did the show for like 3 years. It's probably been 12 months. I was the first comic to be asked to do 10 full minutes. So when I got to about the minute and a half, instead of holding up the minute and a half, they held up a sign that said stretch, which for every comic knows, like, oh, the next person's late. Just keep going. Just keep telling jokes. Stay up there.
Yeah. Alexis is like, I haven't done that since grade school.
Yeah, stretch. Like, I'm like that. What do you think I'm doing standing here? This is my stretching. This is how out of shape I am. But then so that was about a 5 minutes. I got to about 7 minutes thinking, here comes the minute for the 8. And they held up another sign that said stretch. So I ended up going for another 2 more minutes. And then I got the 1 minute sign, which I kind of figured was about 8.5 minutes. It ended up being right around 9. So I did about 10 minutes and a few seconds, something crazy like that. It was really cool. It was one of the greatest moments in my career. RIP to to Norm Macdonald, who is an absolute, well, him too, depending on what happened on social media this week. But RIP to an absolute legend. One of my favorite comedians ever.
Yeah, I mean, Norm, I mean, a lot of people remember him from, obviously, SNL, a lot of Dirty Work, a lot of
Dirty Work
films.
is such a great film.
But especially when I was in junior high school and high school, I was obsessed with Conan O'Brien. And Norm was always a guest on Conan, always hilarious, always. He
had this thing where he was like Conan O'Brien's like arch nemesis / favorite guest.
It's just like he's one of the few guests that was able to make the host uncomfortable, but not enough to not get asked back on the show. Like it was always so funny that you just couldn't at that time before YouTube and everything, you couldn't find that level of like cringeworthy humor, but that you wanted more of. And that is what Norm was just. So many people were fans, but as stand-up comics, like everybody has like a favorite moment or joke that they just like were blown away.
Do you have a favorite Norm Macdonald bit?
The moth story that he told Conan, the moth story that went nowhere, that was super long, that made no sense. That was like it's perfect. Norm Macdonald, just like, man, I thought it was gonna go somewhere, and then the place it went to wasn't. I had no expectation, but I'm like, that was amazing that he was able, because it's almost like I remember doing there's this exercise I remember doing in improv that was essentially like you like passing along like the next rhyme, like somebody did one line of a rap, and then the next person had to I think like say the next word, but it would rhyme or whatever. Yeah. And then we did a version of the exercise where you had to intentionally not rhyme. So you would say the bar, and then the next person had to intentionally not rhyme the thing that the last person said. And it's harder to not rhyme than it is to rhyme, because your brain is so used to and prepared and conditioned to do this a certain way. And that's sort of how I felt with Norm's comedy, where it was like we know the beats of comedy and we know where it's supposed to go, and he was always able to take it to a place that didn't structurally make sense in comedy, but you still laughed. So obviously a terrible loss. R.I.P. Norm Macdonald and his family, but the comedy community deeply appreciates and values a guy like Norm. He was one of the first to like really, whether he hosted shows, events, awards, he just was always himself. He didn't care about what the repercussions were, whether it was
he always went a different direction of what everyone else was going. It was kind of crazy.